I'm Loui Blake. I'm Managing Director of Erpingham House, which is a plant-based restaurant in Norwich and was my first restaurant. I'm also Director of California Kitchen, which is based in London and has one site in Percy Street and another in Fulham. The inspiration for both restaurants was really to communicate just how amazing vegan food is and to kind of take that into the mainstream. I went vegan 4 years ago, and what I found was it was particularly hard to find places to take friends and families to try the food without feeling like you had to be a vegan to go there. So essentially what both restaurants aim to do is to normalise plant-based and vegan foods. It really surprises people just what you can do with just plants. Being from Norwich, I'm really proud to be from here and part of the heritage of the city. It's an iconic building in an iconic area. We named the restaurant after the original building name and really tried to restore the building to its former glory. So it's obviously it's a period building, therefore we felt the decor had to be in keeping with that and finding a balance between obviously the heritage and a modern kind of take. The concept being tied in with the local area, so working with local suppliers, working with seasonal veg, seasonal produce, but doing so in such a way where it was still able to really communicate the brand message, which is plant-based dining for everyone. So it's really a community-based restaurant. With California Kitchen, the inspiration for that was actually taken from spending time in California and while doing food research for Erpingham House. And the foods I was coming across just weren't available in London. Really healthy, colourful, plant-based foods. London, as much as veganism has really taken off, tends to go down the path of junk food. It kind of has limited options. So California Kitchen was really born from a desire to bring back that summery Californian type food to what is mostly a grey and dark London for 9 months of the year. So the award came about actually from somebody sending me a link and saying you should sign up for this. And I kind of ignored it at first, and they followed me up and asked me if I'd registered. And they actually recommended me for the award. So when I got an invitation to the event, it was a surprise. Found out first that I'd been named in the 30 under 30, which was obviously great because I saw some of the other people that were involved and the brands and stuff on that scale. And you know, coming from opening a restaurant in Norwich to be against people working in these massive brands was obviously quite an accolade, and I felt really grateful for that. And then from that 30 to win the award for Future Marketing Leader, obviously I completely didn't expect it. I went to the evening purely to take part and to network and to see what was going on. I think that, like a lot of people that work in hospitality, we're really passionate about the industry, but equally we're frustrated with perhaps the preconception, the connotations of working in the industry carry. And equally, trying to attract more young people to come into the industry has been something that I've really struggled with the restaurant. So RMI really stands for highlighting and celebrating talent in the industry and helping to bring like-minded people within the sector together, which does a great job. I've met some really incredible people through the events and through the awards, and it's an ongoing movement. It's not just an award ceremony, it's post-award, the events that have been put on and the network that's continued online and in person is really helpful. So I have to actually admit that I wasn't fully aware of the prize when I went to the award evening. That was how much I wasn't expecting to win. I didn't actually realise what the prize was. The prize was a scholarship, which was a expenses paid trip first to South by Southwest in Austin, and then to New York, where there was a series of meetings arranged with Union Square Hospitality Group and some other people that are kind of key players in the hospitality scene there. So again, an amazing opportunity, which once I found out, obviously I was incredibly excited about. South by Southwest is, I guess the best way to describe it is a multi-faceted festival. So there's gaming, there's music, there's media, but really why I was there was the media hospitality angle, of which there was obviously many subsections within that. Particularly interesting for me, there was a lot of emphasis on the future of plant-based proteins and clean meats, which was really interesting. There was also a lot of talk around marketing, media, influencers, which within my business I sit within the marketing sector, so that was lots of really real value there. And then the social side of South by, where all of these people from different backgrounds from all over the world come together, meet and mingle, I was able to make some great connections. For example, I met a guy in an Uber who's developing a technology around marketing in Denmark, who I've stayed in touch with and is doing some really interesting stuff. So it's really about lots of people from all over the world descending upon Austin to learn, to engage, to connect. It's a really great festival. So I think South by Southwest is so integral to the economy in Austin. I mean, the hotels, the restaurants, everyone does so well for that period of time that it's on. And really a lot of the year, it seems, is built around that festival. Spoke to some of the restaurant owners and they were talking about just what an increase in foot traffic and awareness that it created for them. But equally, there's people that are local to Austin that give them the opportunity to speak at the event and share their experience from a local perspective. So I found that really interesting as well. What I loved about South by Southwest most was the networking opportunity. So having people from across the world with different experiences, different backgrounds, different cultures and companies made it a great space to meet people and share ideas. So after each talk, there's obviously a changeover period where people can get together and discuss the topics. But equally away from that, whether it be in the Uber home or in the hotel, nearly everyone at that point in Austin is there for the conference. So it's a real great opportunity to obviously speak to people and share ideas, and it's something that I've kind of followed up on with the business cards that I got and stayed in touch with people that are doing interesting things. So Austin was an amazing place. Obviously you have a preconception of what you think Texas is, and I've been there once before. So the last time I went was very Texan. It was in Dallas. However, this time in Austin, it was really bohemian, really interesting place. Went to check out a few vegan restaurants when I landed. Found it to be have a great culture, a great vibe, and obviously during South by, there's people from everywhere there, so it made for a real cosmopolitan type feel. So I don't think I fully appreciated the scale of South by Southwest until I arrived, just how many people there were there, the amount of talks that were available, the amount of things to do. I used the app, which was really helpful, but I essentially sought out the key topics I was interested in: hospitality, food tech, marketing, and I really got to see some really interesting talks. One of which was from somebody involved at Uber Eats, talking about the future of delivery. Some really interesting takeaways and some bits I've been able to implement here in the restaurant. Another one on influencers and future of influencer marketing, which obviously our influencer marketing is a huge part of strategies both here and in California Kitchen. And it was really talking about how the influencer marketing is changing, how people are moving towards using micro-influencers, developing campaigns whereby influencers become ambassadors as opposed to being a one-time thing, and really looking at how we can quantify the value of influencers on an individual level, which obviously was super interesting. There was some great Q&A around it. And there was also an opportunity afterwards to network with other people that were in the talk and share the same interest. One of the main takeaways from the talk was how working with influencers can be on an ongoing basis, and it's not really something that I'd consciously considered before, something that I'd done but not been aware of. So since then we've engaged with a kind of a collective team of people that we go to help us promote new offerings and campaigns, and try to work with on an ongoing basis to generate content for us. So it's something that has been a direct consequence of attending the talk and the festival that we've been able to implement. So the Uber Eats talk was really interesting because it spoke about just how, just in the level of growth that market's in, and seeing it from Uber's perspective was really interesting. One of the key points being that delivery is obviously growing, but equally the people entering the market for delivery is also expanding beyond just restaurants. It's also that not necessarily people are choosing to eat out less, they're just choosing to order in more. So it's how we as a restaurant can meet that need. It really reinforced one of the decisions that I've made at Erpingham House, where we've created a sub-brand for delivery purposes only. We basically learned that our restaurant food, although great in a restaurant, doesn't travel so well. So we created a sub-brand called Vegan Doco, which is for pizzas. Not necessarily pizzas we sell in the restaurant, pizzas that we're able to sell via delivery. As we become a more on-demand, convenience-led society, I think it's important for vendors to have that option available to customers. And if it doesn't necessarily fit your core offering, finding a way to pivot so that you can still meet the demand. So one of the most interesting talks I went to was actually about the future of proteins, not necessarily looking at the plant-based market, but actually food tech in general. So how we can move away from necessarily using animal proteins into more sustainable sources. I'd consider this to be soy, pea, etc. And it's obviously something that we'd looked at as being a meat-free restaurant, how we can innovate and produce new food items. One of the topics that this touched on was using alternative proteins such as algae, such as fungi, and also looking at how displaced farmers could repurpose their existing infrastructure to still stay in the game. So looking at vertical farming, looking at joining one of these more niche methods so that they would find a way where they could repurpose their existing setup. It was a really interesting talk and some really hot debate on that topic. But I'm seeing a huge shift at the moment in mainstream restaurants offering and seeking to offer vegan dishes. The easiest way for them to do that is to seek out alternatives to the existing food they sell. So it's much easier, for example, for a burger restaurant to replace an existing recipe with a meat-free burger rather than create a whole new dish. So what I'm seeing is restaurants actively seeking out very simple go-tos so they can extend vegan listings on their menus. But where that then heads next is how we then innovate beyond that to more obscure items that perhaps seemingly harder to replicate, whether it be eggs, whether it be things like meringues and ice creams and sauces. I think that's the next stage. So the second part of the trip was to New York, and it's somewhere that I hold in my heart because I lived there for a period when I was 19. And it's great to go back there, still have friends there now, and it's somewhere that I've gone to seek inspiration for anything that I've done in terms of hospitality and food. So I'd had arranged for me a meeting with Union Square Group, which was obviously incredibly interesting. I read Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, so having that connection and that understanding of what he and the group have been able to achieve really kind of whet my appetite for going to their office and meeting them. What I learned from that experience was just how much they know about their guests and just how important their guests are to them. The level of research they're willing to do on guests prior to them attending the restaurant, and the aftercare is really inspiring and really motivated me to pay more attention to our customers coming back here. But New York in general is absolutely thriving, both in terms of a leisure scene and a plant-based dining scene. There's some incredible restaurants and some of the best that I visited in the world. Plant Food and Wine is probably my favourite restaurant ever, and it's obviously in Manhattan. So it was great to be able to do both, to be able to take the meetings and really learn, but then equally go out by myself and see the city and kind of see that working in action. There's just a raw energy in New York. It's like London, but it's just more ruthless, I think. You have to be so good. The competition's so strong. There's so many people in such a small area that if you're not, you lose. So the way that brands have to market there and the way they have to create and innovate constantly is really inspiring. You can draw so many great ideas from. One of the things that really stood out for me when I was there was I went to a sushi restaurant called Beyond Sushi. It's vegan sushi, but the way they were able to recreate the same flavors and textures and do so in such a way that it was easy for the customer to understand was really interesting, and it's made me reconsider how we write our menu copy and how we communicate what we're doing with customers. I found it really interesting. I think the main takeaways to help my business and others is reinforcing what we know about influencer marketing and the need to really involve the customer in the narrative. So seeing customers as part of the story and part of the journey and not being afraid to reach out to them and involve them in what we're doing. Equally, it's also reinforced for me that we're on the right side of history with plant-based and that definitely it's the future of dining. And seeing how restaurants in the US are ahead of the curve and the dishes they're recreating and the food tech innovation that's going on really has inspired me to look further into what we can potentially put into the dishes and on the menus here.